Alright, I said I'd never make a video like this because I believe in a lot of this shit, but not really, and it's kind of confusing, and I don't like the immediate, you know, uh, rejection that this brings about in a lot of people, so I usually don't talk about it. It's also not a huge thing either. I don't think that, the empath world, the psychic world, the spiritual world is necessarily critically important to a recovery process from trauma or addiction or suicide. Elements of it are, but the labels are not. And so I'm in this goofy middle world where I understand the labels, the terms, the patterns, but I also understand the realistic side of things. And I'm not more weighted on one or the other. I'm very neutral, and that's why I think that my perspective is worth sharing about something that confused me so unbelievably deeply when I started this recovery from childhood sexual abuse, addiction, and trauma fucking 4 years ago. And I was born and raised in Wisconsin, Midwestern culture. Grew up hunting and fishing, playing sports, being academic, playing the cello, reading, writing. A very, very American wholesome mix of hard work and creativity. And I didn't grow up with any of this stuff ever. I never even heard these terms until I started trying to recover, like empath and clairvoyance and psychics and transmutation of energy and, the soul and all this stuff. And I just, like, so much of it was so mystical that I wanted to disbelieve it because I like critical thinking and being, academic and finding the truth, and I like science. And then part of me also realized the truth in some of these things that can't necessarily be explained. And so I didn't deny it, and I didn't really accept it. And that's, I think, why my perspective is valuable. Here's what I'll say. If you're wondering about any of this shit, it's all real. All of it's real. But that doesn't mean it's as magical as it appears or that it's as cosmic as you might think. When it comes to, are you the fucking chosen one? Are you a star seed? Are you fucking this? Were you born for, it's like, hold on. Calm yourself down with that stuff. You start thinking you're too important, then that's going to be, its own problem. And a lot of that is the work of the ego, attaching to labels, really needing an identity. A lot of it, most of it that you see online is not healthy. It's an identity projection. It's an identity problem. And that's why it's so confusing, because a lot of it is real. But most of the people that talk about this kind of stuff are completely consumed with the identity. And they are fucking ridiculous. And so, here's what I'll say. Think about this deeply. If you even know what I'm talking about up until this point, then I don't have to really explain it. I'll just present my argument. My argument is this. All these people, they claim to be this, claim to be that, or, you know these terms and labels and positions and patterns that could exist. Think about it critically. Most of it is, as a result of trauma. If you go back in any of these people who talk about these things, stories, there's usually, if not always, trauma. And that leads to the trauma response, which is survival mode. And what is survival mode in humans? Forget the internet bullshit. Just think about it in big picture. If you have a survival mode as a human, what probably does that mean? It means that you have become a creature that is highly attuned to their environment so that they can scan and always be on the lookout for threats because you're oriented towards survival, which means that anything that interrupts your state of being is an act of life or death because you think about everything in terms of survival, not just in existence, but life and death. And so you're highly attuned to your environment, you're hyper vigilant, you notice and take in and scan everything. Your senses, all of them, are jacked all the way the fuck up, which is why the survival mode burns people out, is because it's not meant to be sustained. It's meant to be used in short term. But when you hold on to that as a trauma response forever, like, all you're doing is living with these jacked up senses. And so what does that mean? It means that you are exponentially more tuned in to the world than most people. That's a fact. Also, you're probably highly emotionally intelligent. You probably feel really deeply. You probably understand emotions really deeply, all the different flavors of them. You probably are fascinated with them because they are fascinating. And so when you combine that with this survival mode, you now are an expert at noticing everything and understanding it as well from an emotional perspective. So like, it's not that you're an empath because you were born the chosen one and you have magical powers. It's that you're in survival mode, probably for unhealthy reasons, and you're really emotionally intelligent. So when you talk to somebody, it's not magic that you can pick up that there's a story behind the front they're trying to put on. People are not good at hiding their emotions if they're not, in general, I guess, people are just not good at hiding their emotions. Even if they are, when you're in survival mode, you're really good at picking them up anyways. And so when you see somebody, you can watch them try to put on a good face, and you can notice everything about it from, the way they're standing, from their body posture, from the words they choose, from the cadence in which they speak, to the details in which they put in and leave out, the small little spaces they think they're covering up or don't realize they even have, that you pick up on in certain parts of the story, and you begin to fill in the story. All of a sudden, they're trying to tell you how good their weekend was, and you're like, how's your brother? And they're like, how the fuck did you know that? And you're like, you don't really know how to explain it, because you could be like, well, you did this when this and then this, so then this must be true, and I took a chance on this piece, and even though I had a really good reason why this would be a good guess, and blah blah, and all of a sudden, the story made sense enough where it couldn't be not true, and so then I said, how's your brother? And then it feels like magic, and that's that's the trap, is that you can't explain it, and other people can't explain it. So when things can't be explained, most people just assume it's magic, or like it's some greater thing in the grand scheme of life, some cosmic power bestowed upon you. Careful with that. You're gonna just become a self-consumed narcissist if you just start believing all that stuff. But that doesn't mean you deny what's real. And it's like when it comes to the psychic shit and the medium shit and the spirituality aspect of it. Like, here's what I believe. And I invite you to disagree with me, because I would love to know the truth, and I've been trying to find the truth. And I like the truth that I think I've figured out so far. And that's that, people are not just their body, and they're not just their mind, and they're not just their spirit, whatever that means to you. They're a combination of all of them, but also the individual pieces. So like, if you die, if your physical body is dead, to me it just doesn't make sense that that's it for you. Whatever you is, that's it. I've never, even when I was a kid, like, I'm like, I don't subscribe to a religion, but I don't believe it. You're not just dead. There's not just nothing. And even if there is, like, what does that really mean? Nothing is still a place. Like, you can get really heady about it, where you're like, well, if there's nothing afterwards, that's still technically a place, And so it's like, whatever. I think 100% that the psychic and medium shit is real. I've met a couple that have proved to me through many experiences that I cannot deny that there's some truth to it. But again, it goes back to, not that you're magical, but that you're very well attuned to life. Some people more than others, and it doesn't have to go away when you recover. And that's another big fear, is that you think all these things are a result of this survival mode, which they're not just a result of the survival mode. And then one of those irrational fears is, well, if I actually get better, then I might lose some of this stuff. That's not true at all. Don't fall into that trap. I kind of fell into that for a little bit, because some of this stuff is really convincing. I'm like, oh, this is just kind of cool, even though I don't really understand it. And if I get better, maybe this will go away. Fucking doesn't. In fact, the opposite. Like, now, instead of being hyper tuned always without being able to turn it off, you can just turn it on and off, and you can tune into your environment more and tune out. You're sovereign over your attention. And that's where I think, a lot of this mix-up comes, is there's some people who genuinely have mastered their self to where they are fantastic human beings, in the sense that they are really in tune with the world and with people. And there's other people who have touched some of that, went and learned all the words and the fancy titles and all the magic bullshit, and said, I'm special, I am this identity, and this is who I am, and this is, because this is who I am, everything that this is who I am. And that's just like, that's like narcissism, really. Like, it's you, it's just not, it's not healthy, and you can see it, you can feel it. That's the thing, like, your feelings don't fucking lie to you. Like, you can feel, when you see someone talk about this empath and psychic shit, and you're like, nah, like, I don't even disagree with what you're saying, I disagree with you. And that's where it gets confusing. And so, if this helps at all, because this would have fucking helped me, yes, all that stuff is real, but not because of what people tell you it is. It's because people are highly in tune with the world. And, humans are emotional creatures. We're not just analytical creatures. Science exists to explain the world. You know what I mean? Which means that science is only as good as it is, and yet the world is still there. Science progresses, we fill in more pieces of the world. How many of the pieces of the world have we not filled in yet? I'm not claiming there's specific things that we haven't uncovered, but the fact that it is open-ended and that science is not final means that it is okay to believe in stuff you cannot understand. Because understanding is a thinking thing. If it feels true in your heart, then it probably is true. If it really feels honestly true in your heart, it's probably true. In fact, I would even argue that it's always true. You may just be looking at it in a weird way. And so make sure you don't get wrapped up in the fucking spirituality of all of it. You're not fucking special. In fact, you're probably unhealthy as it is. And you should work, to get better. And then when you're better, it's like, now you're just a capable human. You're able to empathize with people because you do understand emotions. You can figure out the little signs. But that shit doesn't always have to be on. And yeah, it's fucking real. But it's just not as magical as people say. And then fucking don't do the identity thing. You know what I mean? Like, identity is the biggest, it's the biggest mistake, is to claim that you are something. It is the single biggest mistake to say, I am this thing. Because now you have to be that thing. And everything that people think that thing is, otherwise you're a liar. Which puts you in a box. You're not supposed to be in a box. Right? You can have little pieces of a whole bunch of shit. And into an identity that doesn't exist. In fact, that's how it should be. Because you're unique. You shouldn't fit into these little boxes. So don't fall into the identity trap. This shit's for real. But usually it's just because we don't give enough credit to the human experience as far as what it can do.